Welcome to Revelation Unraveled. I'm your host, William Tapley, also known as the third eagle of the apocalypse and the co-prophet of these end times. As incredible as it may seem, just this week I have discovered another amazing end times prophecy about our new president, Mr. Donald J. Trump. As you know, I've done quite a few programs already where he is found in Isaiah's chapter number 45. But we shouldn't be surprised that he is found in more than one chapter in the Bible, because our former president, the leopard, Barack Obama, was found in 3 passages, in Daniel 7, Daniel 11, and Jeremiah 50. However, the prophecies about Donald Trump are much more encouraging. And I discovered this passage in Micah chapter number 5. And I was doing some research on the possibility that Donald Trump is the great monarch, as prophesied for thousands of years in Catholic prophecy. I know some of you, my subscribers, disagree with that. But it's beginning to look more and more as if that is who the great monarch is. And I found an article on Walid Shubat's website by his wife, and the whole article was about that possibility, and I'll put a link to her article below if I can think of it. And in that article, she casually mentions Micah chapter number 5. Well, as soon as I saw that number 5, I said, I've got to check that out, because of course 5 is a rosary number. And as soon as I read the chapter, I knew right away that once again we had discovered another end times prophecy. And I thought all the end times prophecies were contained in Daniel and Revelation and so on. But now we're discovering more and more now that Donald Trump has taken office. And the reason I call this program 2 Popes and 2 Presidents is because I think that Donald Trump is being opposed by another president, Barack Obama. Isn't it strange that he is still living in Washington? Just like the 2 popes, Benedict and Francis, are living in the Vatican, we have Donald Trump and Barack Obama both living in Washington. And what is really discouraging is that the government is following our fake President Obama. The policies we have in place have not changed. He is still the President of the United States. For example, why doesn't Congress defund Planned Parenthood? They can do that. They did it several times while Obama was president. Not now. They don't do it now. They only did it before for political points. They could repeal Obamacare. I read an article by Ann Coulter that the Republicans repealed Obamacare 6 times under Obama. The Congress did. So why don't they repeal Obamacare under Trump? They could do it just as easily. I think we are beginning to understand that the power of this government still resides in Barack Obama. Look at the court system. The entire court system is opposed to Donald Trump. They are all behind Obama. We are in very frightening times. And I think this is playing right into Obama's hands. I am almost beginning to think that Obama may be the Antichrist after all. Just as in his dream, where the leopard morphs into the Antichrist, it's possible that the leopard Obama is going to also take on that role in these end times. And the situation today is ideal. In fact, it's better for him if Trump was elected rather than Hillary, because he can oppose the administration 100%. It's very possible he will provoke World War III behind Trump's back. Why would that be to his advantage? This is even better than when he was president, because now he can blame Trump. So now let's look at chapter 5 of Micah, because Micah says, no, we can't blame Trump. Trump is the good guy. So let's look at verse 1 of Micah. Now shall you be laid waste, O daughter of the robber. Now the King James says troops instead of robber. Robber is better, as you will see in a minute. They have laid siege against us. With a rod shall they strike the cheek of the judge of Israel. So who are all these people? Now, like most end times prophecies, this has a dual prophecy. Micah here was prophesying about Jesus. In fact, it's in Micah 5 that we discover where the Messiah would be born, and that was in Bethlehem. But in the end times, who, for example, is you? Who is the daughter of the robber? Who is the robber? Who is the judge of Israel? So let's go backwards in order to unravel this prophecy. We'll go in reverse. Who is Israel? Well, if you've been following my other programs, especially on Isaiah 45, we know that Israel is a code word for the remnant Catholic Church. Remember, I have told you that Donald Trump is going to convert and become a Catholic. So who would be the judge of Israel? Remember, this is not the Roman Catholic Church. This is the remnant Catholic Church. So the judge of the remnant Catholic Church would be the true Pope. That can only be Pope Benedict, as you can see. Pope Benedict. He is the true current judge of Israel, not the false prophet, Pope Francis. So if Israel is the remnant Catholic Church, and this verse is addressed to you, that would be we remnant Catholics, and we are the daughter of the robber. Who is the robber? The robber can only be the Roman Catholic Church. That's why I say I'm surprised that the KGB didn't leave it as robber. They changed it to troops to kind of modify it a little bit because they recognized that this was talking about Jerusalem, and they didn't want to give such a harsh word. This is a description of the end times Roman Catholic Church, the church that is being trodden under by the Gentiles. But if this one world religion of Pope Francis is a robber, what did he steal? He stole the Eucharist. That's why the Roman Catholic Church is called a robber in these end times. Pope Francis has taken away, that is stolen, the daily sacrifice from the prince. That is exactly what Micah is prophesying about here in chapter 5, verse number 1. And you shall be laid waste. That refers to we remnant Catholics in the end times. We are going to be attacked and opposed. And Donald Trump is going to be our leader, believe it or not. So now let's look at the next verse, and it's not verse number 2. In subsequent programs, I will show you the correct arrangement of these verses. The second verse is verse number 5. And this man shall be our peace. When the Assyrian shall come into our land, and when he shall set his foot in our houses, and we shall raise against him 7 shepherds and 8 principal men. Now the KGB has princes instead of principal men. I think princes is probably better. But once again, how do we know who these people are in the end times? Now, this man is referring to Jesus in the original interpretation. But why does Micah call Jesus this man? Well, technically it's accurate. Jesus was a man. But in the end times, he couldn't use, for example, a divine person, because in the end times, he's talking about Donald Trump. This man is our current president, the leader of our remnant Catholic Church, believe it or not. He is going to convert to Catholicism. Shall be our peace. Micah is telling us here that Donald Trump is a man of peace. If World War III breaks out or a nuclear conflict in the Middle East, it is not Donald Trump's fault. It is the fault of Barack Obama. It is the fault of the one world government and the Antichrist. I'm not sure Obama is the Antichrist, but those are the persons to blame. And Nathan's prophecy may very well still come true. Here's a possible scenario. World War III breaks out in the Middle East. Trump is, of course, blamed. He is forced into sending Obama as a peace emissary to Israel. And as you know, Netanyahu says Obama will be killed and buried in Israel. That may still come true. And the Assyrian, when the Assyrian shall come into our land, the Assyrian is the Antichrist. That could be Obama. He comes into our land. Now, the remnant Catholic Church is spread throughout the world. In this case, our land could very well refer to the United States, because if Barack Obama is this man, our land would be the United States of America. And when he shall set his foot in our houses, in other words, the forces of the Antichrist are going to bring about all the things that Obama wants. In other words, martial law, the RFID chip, and so on. We are going to be oppressed. And Donald Trump is not going to be able to do anything about it. As I say, our government is still in the hands of the one world government, the New World Order. And Obama is still our de facto president, sad as it may seem. And we shall raise against him, against the Antichrist, against the Assyrian, 7 shepherds and 8 princes. Well, the shepherds are undoubtedly religious leaders, and the princes or principal men, they would be political leaders. So we're not going to be alone in this fight, even though Trump is not really going to be available at the beginning of this battle against the Antichrist. And those are symbolic numbers. 7 is a number of completion. 8 is a number of new beginnings. Those are both end times numbers. For example, the 8th beast comes out of the 7th beast. It's possible that Obama is the 8th beast coming up out of the 7th. And of course, 7 plus 8 is 15. Once again, Mary's rosary number against the Assyrian. This is how we will defeat the Assyrian, is through Mary's rosary. And in fact, this is chapter 5, verse number 5. This is a key verse in understanding chapter number 5 as an end times prophecy, just as verse number 15 was a key verse in understanding Isaiah number 45. So that's all I have time for today. I am going to, as soon as possible, continue this understanding of Micah 5. This is very important in these end times. I didn't understand any of this a week ago. In fact, I only figured out who the robber was this morning on my way to morning mass. The Lord revealed that to me. I couldn't believe it when he told me that the robber is the Roman Catholic Church. And we remnant Catholics are going to have to leave the Roman Catholic Church. We are going to have to leave the field, as Jesus says in the Olivet Discourse. And remember, Jesus said, pray that your flight be not in winter. Well, winter is over with in a few weeks. So this is all fascinating, and in a way it's kind of scary. This prophecy in Micah is much more detailed and in a way frightening than the prophecy in Isaiah 45. And as always, if you'd like to know more information about my ministry here on YouTube, visit my ThirdEagleMedia.com website.